Welcome, Dr. Singh. I'm so happy you made the time to come to the studio and talk to us today because we are talking about the Bhagavad Gita, which is your latest passion. Please tell us to begin with how you came to have such an interest in the Gita.
Thank you, Makarand. It's always a pleasure to be with you in our studio. The Gita, it seems, is perhaps the most overwhelming passion that I've had. And I can't remember having such an intense involvement in any work of literature in the past, except when I'm writing my own. And the Gita is, as you are aware, is one of the pivotal texts of the Indian civilization. It is unique that it has taken the essence of the masterly Vedas and the Upanishads and kind of distilled them into a very practical way of absorbing that wisdom, that knowledge, and its insistence throughout on working through karma yoga, doing the works in this world while having a connection, deep engagement, involvement with the divine through devotion, through bhakti, and then growing in knowledge and jnana. That is a unique proposition which I think had never really come. The emphasis on karma yoga was the first time that it really came through with such force.
Yeah, but how did you come onto it?
Okay, so I didn't answer the question, but let me come. Yeah. So I've been reading the Gita in translation since 1987, I think. And essays on the Gita, Sri Aurobindo had written it, and it's a fabulous work. I learned a lot from it. And for me as a physician, living in this world is important. I can't treat people sitting in my cave in the Himalayas unless we do telemedicine, which is possible now. So that was important, and over the last 6 to 8 months, some friends asked me to start teaching the Gita online, and I didn't think I was qualified enough to do it, but I guess they didn't have anybody else who had the time for them. I mean, that's the most charitable assumption one can take. And so when I started teaching them, then I got deeper into the subject matter myself. And the process of teaching, as you know, being an educationist, when you teach, you learn the most. You're in the most privileged position because you can read anything and just give the little bit that you remember, and the rest you have access to. So through this process, I started going deeper into the Sanskrit this time, but in a different way. I tried to read the Gita in Sanskrit a long time ago. I failed because I forgot something essential which came to me this time. See, the Gita is primarily an oral tradition. We were not emailing the Gita, we were not putting it in PDF files, 3,000 years ago. Some people say it's 5,000 years old, some people say it's 3,000 years old, whatever, that I'm not worried about. But it was an oral tradition, and we had a tradition of people reciting it in various villages and communities, and there were these reciters or the vachaks who were expert with it. And I had a preliminary had a go at chanting with the Veda. So I tried it. Veda chanting is much more difficult. Gita is much easier. And that's kind of got me involved in it. My mother's father was an Arya Samaji, so he used to chant, and I was very little. But he used to chant the Vedas. By heart, he had them. And so I guess some memories came back, and then I just did it. And I started chanting it. I'm not a singer. I'm not a reciter, professional reciter, whatever that means, although we have had them in India. But the love of it grew on me.
So we're going to get you to chant in a moment.
But that's how I came to the Gita.
Okay, I'm giving you advance notice. But now, tell us a little more about this class. I know that I've attended it. It's fascinating.
Right.
And I know we have about 20, 25 people, and
Right.
they're all extremely successful in their own...
They're all successful people in their own right. They're tech professionals, technicians, technical people. So before this, there was a class in Hindi on the Gita.
Okay.
So my Hindi is rusty. I'm not talking in Hindi much with people. There's no conversation going on. So of course, as you start reading the Gita, the Sanskrit, the Hindi comes back to you. And I stay out of controversy. So this was a very exclusively philosophic discussion. Philosophy, I have, it's easier for me. When you come to the actual sensory, auditory, perceptive experience of the Gita, then this is something new that started. So the abstract state of understanding and then the actual experience of the Gita, totally different.
Different, correct.
And so then Hindi, when I started experiencing it and others were reciting it wrong, so I got annoyed. I said, what are you doing? The Visarga is not right, your Sandhis are not right, your Padas are not right, you're mixing, you're taking in the Anushtup, the first, every Pada has 8 Varnas, and we can talk about that if you're interested someday. He's running into 10 and then 6 on the other one. It's just messing it up. So I got very annoyed. So I said, I'm not a reciter, but I'll recite. So I started doing it, and I think I did a reasonable job. And slowly as I got into the flow, then I realized it's not the technical aspect that is needed from me. The feeling has to come out. People need to be able to touch that. And if the listeners, the shrotas can touch the sound, can hear it somewhere in the ear of the ear, the shrotavya, shrotasya shrotvam, then something will happen. So, and something happened to me too. So that is the crux of the matter.
Yeah, that's fantastic. In fact, we are going to try to put this course out so that other people can also benefit.
Yeah.
But now I also know, since we're working together on it, that as a part of this unfolding,
Yes.
you're actually doing a book called
Yes.
The Gita as a literary masterpiece.
Yes.
Now, there have been hundreds of books on the Gita, and
Yes.
it's been possibly the most translated Indian text.
Yes.
But very few people have treated it as a literary masterpiece. So how did you think about sort of this angle of the Gita? And can you tell us some of the discoveries you've made in the process?
Yes. So I had no intention. So when I started talking about it, then I've been writing a little bit, books on Sri Aurobindo, books on the Veda. So essays started coming. And initially they were more the spiritual aspect, the philosophic genius of the Gita, which is tremendous. So I talking about the Sankhya, then I brought Stoicism, then the symbolism, how the symbols are used, how beautifully it has been put together, bringing in the Sankhya and the Karma Yoga and the Gyan Yoga, all the integral aspects of life brought together, which is at the level of the thought. But as I started reading it one by one, and it's very simple actually, we take it for granted. We have stereotyped our own scripture. It's really a brilliant work as a work of literature.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized there are a lot of tricks in the Gita, literary devices, figures of speech, tropes, that if you miss them...
And sound patterns, repetitions.
Yes, there's the vibratory element, which we should know. Because we talk about the mantric quality of our traditional, of Veda, of the Upanishads, even of the Gita, but we don't experience it. And if we don't experience it, then we are missing a very essential part of it. And I think the genius of our creators of these works, say 5,000 years ago, or 3,000 years ago, was that they didn't make it just intellectual, they made it experiential. And that is transformative. To me, that was transformative in many ways, and we can talk about that. But the way it is structured in say different shlokas, one by one, and then my Hindi literature knowledge started coming back after 30 years, 35 years. All those alankaras, the ornamentation of literature that I had read about, started coming back, and I said, "Wow, beautiful, exquisite." And then and no one has written about the literary aspect of the Gita. Very few. They kind of ignore it. Except I found a couple of passages from Sri Aurobindo on the literary style of Vyasa, which was very helpful. some exegetical works by, I think Robert Minor has written some. And then there were some translations where they break down into roots. I think Sargent is the one who has done it. These are very good works. And so they were useful, but no one has talked about it. And then I started writing about it. And in the midst of teaching them how to do the recite it, I started talking to the students about what kind of chanda it is, which I thought was preliminary basic knowledge. Everyone knew it.
Anushtup.
Anushtup and
yeah.
Trishtup. No one knows Anushtup, Trishtup. No one knows what a Varna is, what a Swara, Vyanjana. No one knows these. Well, no one. But at least in my class, no one had any idea. So first I had to talk to them about the basics. Then when I started talking about it, I said I should write it. Then I did online search on it. There are a couple of writers coming. Actually, Sampadanand Mishra has written a little bit on it. Then I went to the original Pingala.
Yes, the
Chanda
Chanda
Shastra. I went to Pingala. And Pingala is beautiful, how he has described these chandas and even mathematical models of it. So it's quite fascinating, the whole thing. That's how I started writing about the literary things. And then it just grew. One essay became 2, which became 3, and now it's almost 15, 20 essays. So then, of course, I have to offload it all on you. So you deal with it, if it's worth anything. So I think people should know about the genius.
For sure, for sure. Can you tell us 1 or 2 examples of this literary genius, Maybe you can now recite a particular verse that you really love, as we have done privately when we've been talking.
Okay, I mean, let's listen. And I'm not a reciter. I've just right now I'll just say this. But this is a shlok that was sent to me when my father passed away, and I was aware of it, but I hadn't gone deep into it.
Vasansi Jirnani.
Actually, Najayate
Najayate
the 20th.
Yeah, the 20th.
In Vasansi, then I came to it later. So it goes like this. I think it's the 20th slok of the second adhyaya.
Chapter.
Najayate mriyate va kadachita nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyah ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranah na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So this is a longer stretch.
It's not your normal Anushtup.
It is not Anushtup, it is Trishtup. So right after that, and then suddenly
first explain it. I mean, because the meaning is also profound.
Right. So he's talking about your soul,
and the body.
He's actually what he's talking about is the Purusha, the pure consciousness.
The Mriyate, yeah, right.
Right? So Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna, who's grieving over the future loss of his relatives, not even the loss. They have not even died yet. He's already grieving that they're going to die.
He hasn't killed them yet.
He hasn't killed them yet. But he's grieving over it. And because of that, he has reached a state of disgust.
And depression.
Right? Vishada. So Sri Krishna is explaining to him that this consciousness is neither born nor does it die. Na jayate mriyata va kadachita. There is no possibility of it dying. And this is the first argument of Sri Krishna. That you cannot kill the soul. So what are you talking about? You cannot kill anyone and you cannot
die yourself.
Nor can you die. You cannot hurt others. So this whole concept, this whole logic premise is wrong. Na jayate mriyate va kadachita nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyah. And it is not that it happened once and it's not going to happen again. Means this Purusha, that it happened, it lived once, now it's going to die and it's not going to come back again. That's not even going to happen. Ajo is unborn.
I mean, all the tenses in which our normal consciousness exists do not apply to the Purusha.
Cannot. It is timeless.
The past, the present, and the future. That dimension.
Right. It doesn't apply.
Yeah.
And so he's different ways he's putting that, giving that knowledge to Arjuna. The way I approach it is as if he's talking to me and I'm learning from him.
Right.
That's how I take it. I mean, it's through that device. See, the Gita is a beautiful trope in itself.
Yes.
And we will talk about that. What a brilliant trope it is. But So ajo nitya. Ajo is unborn.
Unborn.
Nitya,
Yeah.
ajaha. Nitya is that is going to
Eternal.
abide
Correct.
forever, right?
Correct.
Nit is going to be for Shashvato, ajo nitya shashvato. It is eternal.
Purana is very old also.
Nitya shashvato ayam purana, ancient.
Ancient.
So in our tradition, Indian
Timeless.
tradition, Purana, the older you are, the better you get. Not like the new age, the young ones are smarter. No, the older ones are smarter. So Purana. Na hanyate hanyamane shrire. Even if the body dies, it is never hurt.
And
It is
this
never
phrase occurs in the Upanishads, in the Brihadaranyaka.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so the Gita resonates.
Yes.
Through,
So allusions, you talk about T.S. Eliot and his allusions in the wasteland, and everybody is so excited. He has, and the whole wasteland is nothing but an illusory book, if we may use the word, elusive work, and brilliant allusions. But the Gita was already doing them. It's not like it's just suddenly it happened. This device was there. So then I went back and revised all my alankaras. Now I got really annoyed with myself, with nobody else. But how am I missing
all of these.
all of these brilliant... Look at the second pad. Nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyah. There are 4 sounds in it.
yeah.
Na, ya, bha,
Bha,
ta and va. Okay, 5.
5.
With that, he has given you a whole world of meaning. He just created Nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyah. That's it. And he has done it again and again. And that's why Sri Aurobindo calls Vyasa as the most masculine of poets. Masculine means minimal ornamentation, threadbare like a skeleton, gaunt. And we are talking about 2 warriors talking to each other. So it's quite appropriate, this technique. And Vyasa has his habit of going into that. He's very polysyllabic. He goes into multiple. In Sanskrit, you can go crazy with the sounds. But he then strips everything and goes into a very bare. These lines they are compact, condensed, but minimal sounds in them. And it's brilliantly done.
So the condensation, the compression, the tying up of the meaning in a certain number of syllables which are repeated for euphony, for effect,
Yes.
and the power of this procedure, as it were, is striking.
It is.
And then each of these lines has now acquired a life of its own.
Yes.
People all over our society simply will quote them
Yes.
from time to time.
And that is the aphoristic character.
That's right. And there's a chapter on that.
That the Gita is, if you could say, it's a book of aphorisms. What he
Yes.
did, okay, write some aphorisms and that's it. But the genius is how they are connected. There is a progression, but each is a universe in itself, as our culture has taken. Each is independent in its meaning, but connected. It makes a beautiful kind of a garland of, you may say,
Aphorisms.
flowers,
Yes.
And so that is the genius of the aphorism. Because the aphorism has to be truth said in a very terse, sometimes witty manner, compressed. Just, that's it. A world you can write a War and Peace on each shloka. So much wisdom there. And he's put them 700 of these together. I think 70-80% of it is just aphorisms. That's another beautiful thing that he has done. And each aphorism is made of 4 sticks, as they say,
Yes.
STICHS,
Yes. Yes.
which 2 are independent. And this goes back to our ancient Indian concept of each sentence or each formation, say the pad, being sufficient in itself. So this was a theory called the spota. That's complete. The inspiration came on block, chock-a-block, this manner. Now you cannot change a single sound or even an iota in that. It is complete. So it's a very brilliantly done work where you have 700 shlokas. Each of them, they're either in anushtup or trishtup. There are 2 different kind of meters. Each of them is made of 4 sticks or units or padas. Pada is foot. Charana or pada. And each is complete in itself. They're not
The
They're end stopped.
Correct. The meaning doesn't have to come till you get to the end.
Right. It is end stopped. What is called a masculine ending.
Yep.
It is not a feminine. It just like Milton, of man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree.
The verb
who's
comes,
mortal.
yeah.
He just goes on and he doesn't stop at the end. He just runs into the other. And then you have to read him in the whole. And that's a different structure, a different construction.
Yes.
But the Gita is a different structure. And you would go back and say, this is so beautifully, elegantly done. What a work of art it is. So I'm just approaching Gita as a work of art, as a work of literature. Philosophy, maybe some other day we can talk about. But we don't have an appreciation. I think if we start appreciating the sound, the meter, the mantra of our literature, we are able to internalize it. To me, it was a revelation. Think about it. I lived in that culture for 50 years? I'm still living in that culture. 55 years. And I don't know the metrical qualities of the most important, perhaps the most important work of our civilization.
Which brings me to the very important pedagogical dimension
Yes.
of your classes, which
Yes.
is that, as you say, you discovered this only when you started chanting yourself.
Yes.
And so now you are advocating learning Sanskrit through the Gita. Tell us about that.
So this was also a serendipity, right? They asked me to. So since I act well and make people think that I really know this, so they said, okay, can you start teaching us Sanskrit? So that's where I give up. That's where I draw the line. Because I'm not an educationist first. I'm not trained in educating people in Sanskrit. I read Sanskrit because I love it. So I don't want to. First, I don't like to teach Sanskrit. And I'll teach other things, but this is the grammar and the vibhaktis and the cases. Are you kidding me? And the ladlankar and the ling. I can't do this. I give up.
Panini. You're talking about Panini.
Panini. I can't do Panini. I can do Pingala. And by the way, they're supposed to be brothers. Really? I don't know if you knew.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were brothers. So I can imagine how they would have dealt with each other. At least that's the apocryphal story.
Yeah.
So I said, forget that. I have to prepare for weeks to even give you one class on Sanskrit. Because I have to go back to my 6th grade and try to go into the grammar.
And at that time, we just had to mug.
Yeah.
We had to mug it up.
And I'm not going to do that.
And
besides, what's the point? I'm not going to talk to you in Sanskrit. Are you going to talk to me in Sanskrit?
A little bit.
No, we're going to go text each other max, right? We'll have to think it through because we don't have the habit. But we love the sound and we love the meaning of these beautiful works. So I love languages. So I said, whatever little Sanskrit you want to learn, I'll give it through my limited knowledge of the language through the Gita. And then I realized that if you want to learn a language, you have to go, as the old saying is, from near to far.
And you shouldn't be afraid of making a mistake or making a fool of yourself.
Yeah, it comes easy to me. I'm an ex-PhD in it. So the thing is, this fear has been put into us that if you don't pronounce it right, the effects of the mantra will be wrong. I understand. That is...
But we are not doing it for that purpose.
Right. We are... I think we got to lighten up a little bit. The whole culture has to lighten up. Indians have to loosen up, I think.
Yes.
So, let's just do it. How much mistake... And the beauty of the Gita is, he takes a very limited range. That's the genius of the man. Virtue is defined by its limitations.
Yes.
I think as Eliot said it,
yes.
right? So he has limited himself. 2 possible meters. That's it. He's not going to change that. 700 shlokas, long verse, long poem, 2 chandas, where he will move around as the mood
exactly
or the exhilaration comes.
So the Trishtup is more extended. It has a different,
dramatic,
more dramatic and more musical intonation.
Right.
Whereas the Anushtup is
punch. He's a warrior. So in that narrow frame, it's easier to learn. You're not doing the Veda where you have to go to the Uddat, Anuddat, Svarita. Forget it. Can't do it. But this, 10-15 years it used to take to master the Veda.
Exactly.
Here we can do it I guarantee you in 10 days.
Wow.
I'm not saying you're going to be a pandit, but you should be able to enjoy it.
Yep.
If you can't enjoy it, if you can't feel it, then it's pointless. Then what are we trying to do? We cannot sustain a language if there's no love for it. We kill the love for the language by teaching grammar. That's not how children learn. Even children don't learn that way.
They make mistakes.
They make
just
with the
make up
mother.
sentence,
They
yeah.
love the mother. They got to express, and the whatever comes, and they're not afraid. We got to be like that. We got to loosen up. So, my brilliant contribution to the world of Sanskrit teaching is
Sanskrit pedagogy.
yes, Sanskrit pedagogy is that you will not learn Sanskrit. That is my major. The golden rule is that you will not learn it.
Nothing can be taught.
Nothing
Sri
can be
Aurobindo
taught.
said.
No, it's pointless to teach. But you can enjoy it. You can absorb it. You can, as the haiku poet will say, you can roll it on your tongue 1,000 times. And just rolling on the tongue, you begin to develop that sense. You don't need Sanskrit grammar. You just need to hear that beautiful sound that was first caught by some great rishis. And if you can hear that, maybe it will transform. Then you can go and learn grammar. Any nice course or you can learn that.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, if I were to give you a little bit of my own experience, I tried to learn Sanskrit thrice and failed.
Right.
And then finally I realized I didn't need to learn it because I already knew it.
Right.
Within quotes.
Right.
Not knew it in the sense in which my teachers were trying to tell me,
Right.
but in the intuitive sense that if I looked at any text and with a little bit of help and
That's it.
I could get the meaning.
Right.
That means it's already inherent in us.
That's right.
And the reason is all modern Indian languages
From our Sanskrit based.
exactly are a different form of Sanskrit.
Right,
They
right.
are you might say prakrit of a Sanskrit.
That's right.
And therefore it's not all that difficult, and certainly the vocabulary is so similar.
Right.
It's only how the words link with one another.
That's right.
And Sanskrit gives you many possibilities.
Yes.
So the same sentence can be read in so
Multiple
many
ways.
multiple ways, and that's a part of its
That's
enjoyment.
another genius of it. So, the way he uses, say, just another example, in the second chapter from, I think it's the 55th to the 72nd shloka, he brings tishtha,
Yes.
sthita,
Yes.
stha,
Stha.
9, 10 times in those 19 or 17 shlokas. Sthita prajna, tishtati. He will constantly come back because his emphasis is on being settled.
Correct.
And stha is a very
Stha.
important word.
Sthan. And that's how we get Hindustan, Pakistan,
Still,
Kazakhstan. Yeah.
State, steadiness. Even in
yeah.
English, we have the
Correct.
words are the same word,
Same roots.
right? So, and to be,
Stasis.
Stasis.
State.
yeah, all these. There are a whole bunch, probably 30, 40 words in English that have come from that. In fact, even to be, estoy in Spanish, to be is related.
Estoy.
Yes, estoy.
So, yeah.
So soy, estoy, all those. My Spanish is my doppelganger is not here right now. Mitch is not here, but he would know the Spanish, I think. If he,
course.
so we could probably pick his brain on that. If his neurons, we can pick up
Or Portuguese.
Portuguese. Yes. So coming back to that, I think we need to approach Sanskrit through the way of feeling, because we've forgotten the limbic system. We just want to learn with the frontal cortex,
With the
prefrontal
brain,
cortex,
with the
right?
brain, not with the ears and the eyes and
the emotion,
mouth,
the
yeah.
feeling, the senses. The limbic system is the older, in the middle of the brain, hidden, which we have given up on. But that's very hippocampus.
Yes.
The memory of the hippocampus is different. Amygdala, it remembers differently. The prefrontal cortex remembers differently. We have to go back to that emotion.
To almost the reptilian brain.
Reptilian brain, that would be deep. So if we can, and reptilian brain, they say, can be transformed through these sounds.
Yes.
So if it sticks into that, if it really goes into your reflexes, a reflexive memory, then I believe Sanskrit will establish itself. You will be able to remember it. And this whole work on literature has taken, for me, a different dimension. I think we need to drop this whole baggage of trying to understand it at some point in our life and just enjoy the work.
Exactly. In fact, it makes me think that Sanskrit is called the Deva Bhasha, the language
Right.
of the gods.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is, in order to learn, to enjoy, and to appreciate and to internalize, to imbue yourself with the language of the gods, you actually need a bit of irreverence.
Irreverence. With reverence. I mean, not out of... Just loosen up. I don't even think the gods have such reverence.
They laugh a lot. We think they're very solemn, but they have a lot of good times.
And so that's our problem. Humans need to lighten up and be like children and make mistakes and hear and children, why do we read nursery rhymes to children? Why do we give them puzzles and we do these tongue twisters that make them laugh, word games? We do a lot with them.
In fact, you have a chapter called the Gita.
Tongue twisters.
Yeah.
The tongue twisters. Oh my God. Here, one whole sentence is the whole path that is one word. Come on. But that's how he is. I think he just loved it. It's also the nature of Sanskrit, where you can do the combination of words called the sandhi, or samasa also comes. So words can come together, and the vowels or the swaras can combine and give us new sounds, and it creates really beautiful effects, almost like an orchestra. Gita gives you an orchestral sound, and it's the way he has built it, almost like a symphony. Each chapter, he takes almost, if you indulge me a little bit, he'll take a note and he'll build on it, right? If you remember the Fifth Symphony,
of Beethoven,
right? And then he will build on it, and then he builds on it, and then after he has exhausted the possibilities, then he'll take another note, and he'll build another note. And he'll build it as like a counterpoint, a contrapuntal movement.
Contrapuntal, right.
And then he will start playing with them and combining them and see where it goes. And then he'll take another strain and he'll build on that. So it's a interweaving of the sounds he has done, a symphonic structure, and each chapter is a stage of one's personal growth.
Yes.
That's the brilliance of it. Yet I can read the last shloka and still be fine.
Correct.
And then go back, because each is a complete autonomous unit.
It's not sequential merely.
No. So it's like you go and someone is playing Beethoven and you come to the third or fourth section. You're not going to say, no, go back. You can enjoy where you start, wherever you are. Because each unit becomes a whole in itself. And that's the genius the Indian mindset was like that each unit could be complete and each unit reflects the whole. And then there's a bigger whole. So you have a smaller completeness and then a bigger completeness. And that was the ancient concept of Brahmand and Pindan. Pindan. We are each a complete unit. So that it overlaps. It comes through in that. So there are a lot of beautiful things in the work, and I think that's how the book is evolving.
Fantastic. So I hope that we take this conversation forward.
Absolutely.
And possibly next time we'll talk about the Gita itself as a metaphor. The entire framing of it, the setting and the actors and what it means in a bigger symbolic dimension.
That's a brilliant staging. It's almost like he created a whole epic just to stage the Gita almost. You can say that. The problem is we are so protective of the sanctity of it that we've learned to stop playing. We've learned to become very rigid and serious. So if we see it as a work of literature, qua literature, then we see what a work of genius it is. And just the poetry. So how he has staged it, and he has brought two armies together, and you're at the point of life and death, the life and death of not one person, but the entire nation. The civilization could come to an end. And the two most important protagonists, as it were, and they are on their chariot, which itself is a great symbol by itself, and they are now poised right in the middle. I mean, Bollywood would be proud of such a staging, right? And in between the two of them, like Ayn Randish, plot, what she loved. This is right in the middle, and now, in the midst of death, let's talk philosophy. Let's talk poetry. I mean, you can't have a more climactic point of discussion where you're right at the verge of death, everyone's death, and now you say, okay, tell me what life means. It's a brilliant. I'm flabbergasted at how brilliant it is. Whether it happened during the actual war or not has no meaning. It's
Exactly,
irrelevant.
it's irrelevant. I mean, but it is a part of the epic, and even if it's an insert, and it can be excerpted as well as a standalone. Even so, the staging is absolutely.
It's a work of genius, and
totally.
So see, the problem with Mahabharata is originally it was 24,000 shlokas.
It was just the Bharata. Then it became the Mahabharata.
People added. There are 4 or 5 other poets who came and added. But they say that the Gita,
core story,
the core story was there. And we don't know if the Gita was the original Upanishad around which the Mahabharata was created, or the Mahabharata was created and then the Gita was inserted to give it relevance or importance, or they happened at the same time. No one has been able to prove or disprove that. And Robert Miner has done a lot of research on it, a lot of Bale Walker, they've did a lot of research on it, Buchanan, or Buchanan, I forget his name.
Van Buchanan.
Zehner, all these guys, they really spent 100 years just figuring out whether this was written by one person or whether this was a composite work.
Or Sukhtankar, his critical edition.
Right, so many different Vulgate recensions, different recensions were there, Kashmiri recension. But at least so far as we know, it is one work. And also people were confused by what it means because there are so many different ideas in it. But I think it can be fairly safely said now that if you really understand it, it is a unity. The work has its own unity. Whether it was inserted later or earlier, it was the original work, it really doesn't matter. It is the brilliance of the work itself and how it is set up in that stage that is awe-inspiring. And if we can appreciate that and how it has inspired some of the best minds of world literature, including Emerson, Thoreau, T.S. Eliot, some of the Sri Aurobindo. So,
and all our national leaders.
All the Indian independence struggle was started with the Gita and the sword, right? That's how they were initiated. So I think we can start appreciating it. And there are probably multiple ways, many ways of looking at this brilliant work. And this is just one way of looking at it. And hopefully our young students of Sanskrit will appreciate it. And I think if they appreciate it, they'll get 1-2 punch out of this, or 1-2-3 2-punch 3-punch out of this. They'll learn Sanskrit, they'll learn poetry or literature, and they'll learn about the Gita.
Yes, absolutely. And in recent years, I mean, people like Chinmayanandaji have made it very accessible. If you go to India, many hotel rooms have a copy of the Gita.
Really?
And the Gita Press has sold millions of copies, tiny little books like that. You can carry it in your pocket. And I know people who will just open...
That's a beautiful thing. So I think people need to internalize it and hopefully carry the Gita here.
Yes.
If we can do that.
But I think the initiative that you're taking, which is really unique in my view, is to teach Sanskrit through the Gita on the one hand, and also to look at it as a world of literature. So with these words, we thank you very much, and our conversation series will continue.
Next time we'll make you recite the Gita.
Done. Absolutely. With a little bit of practice.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.